explain how social media often presents a curated version of reality, where families appear united and joyful, even when real connections are strained or broken behind the scenes. Let me tell you something about social media. It's not real. We all know that, right? We say it, we know it intellectually, but that doesn't stop it from cutting like hell when you're on the outside looking in. And that's exactly where I found myself last Thanksgiving. Sitting in my apartment alone, scrolling. Watching the people I love, the people I share DNA with, laughing over wine and turkey, taking group selfies around a table I used to sit at, posting captions like "grateful for family," and "nothing like being home for the holidays." It looked perfect, polished, warm lighting, coordinated outfits, hugs, the whole Hallmark picture. But what wasn't in the frame was the fact that I hadn't even been invited. Not a text, not a call. Not even a "hey, you doing okay this year?" Nothing. Just a live feed highlight reel of the family I wasn't welcome to join. And here's the truth we don't talk about enough. Social media lets people perform togetherness. It's like a stage. And holidays. Oh, their opening night. Everyone's got their part to play. The smiling grandma with the pie, the cousins elbow deep in stuffing, the toast over the dinner table. But the camera never pans to the people sitting alone. It never shows the silence in a quiet apartment. It never shows the text you never got. You want to know the most painful part? It's not even just being alone. It's the gaslighting that happens when what you see online tells you everything is fine, but your gut knows otherwise. Because there I was, watching this beautiful family tableau unfold, and yet I knew the real story. I knew the conversations that had gone unspoken for years. I knew the tension, the unresolved hurt, the choices that had led to that seat at the table being left empty. But it's not just me. You've been there too. Maybe not on Thanksgiving, maybe not with family, but you've had that moment where you scrolled past someone's perfect post and thought, "Wait, why wasn't I included?" Or, "Why does it look like they're living the life I thought we were building together?" And then you start questioning yourself. You wonder if you're the problem. You wonder if you imagined all of it, the hurt, the distance, the rejection. Because their feed says otherwise. And that's the trap. The illusion of togetherness online has a way of distorting reality. It makes you feel like you're the crazy one for feeling hurt. Because how could they be posting about gratitude and family and love if they left you behind? If they ghosted your messages? If they know exactly where you are and chose not to reach out? Let me tell you what that kind of illusion does. It silences people. It isolates you even more. You don't speak up because you don't want to ruin the image. You don't want to be that person who can't just let things be nice for once. So you swallow it. You nod at the photos and drop a "Happy Thanksgiving" comment like it doesn't burn. You play along. You perform too. But that year, I didn't have it in me. I couldn't pretend anymore. Because watching that version of reality play out online while I sat alone with leftovers and a candle I lit just to feel like something was happening, that hit me differently. That was the moment it clicked. Their story was only half of the truth. And the other half, it was mine. So yeah, I posted. I didn't rage or accuse or drag anybody through the mud. But I told the truth. I wrote, "This year I ate alone on Thanksgiving. No invite, no call. Just me, my thoughts, and a lot of clarity." That was it. And you know what? I've never been more scared to press post in my life. But I've also never been more proud. 'Cause it was real. And that reality, it was valid. We are not obligated to uphold a version of the truth that makes other people more comfortable if it erases our pain. We are not required to mute our experiences to keep someone else's story looking polished. And we are certainly not crazy for seeing through a picture-perfect post and feeling something is missing, because often it is. So if you've ever found yourself crying while scrolling, or wondering why the people who claim to love you don't show up when it matters, let me just say this. Your feelings are real. Your experience is real. And just because they posted a picture-perfect holiday doesn't mean your exclusion didn't happen. Just because it looked like family doesn't mean it felt like one. Let's talk about what it actually feels like to be left out, because that's the part no one wants to admit. Not online. Not at family gatherings. Not even to ourselves. It's not just that I ate alone. It's not just that there was no invite, no check-in, no plate saved for me. It's that I sat there wondering what I had done that made me forgettable. It's that sinking, hollow feeling in your chest when the people who are supposed to be your people choose not to include you. And when it happens on a day like Thanksgiving, when the whole world is posting about full tables and fuller hearts, it doesn't just feel like you're missing dinner. It feels like you're missing from the picture completely. There's a loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. Comes from knowing you were left out on purpose. That's different. That's sharper. And no matter how much logic you throw at it, how much you try to soothe yourself, maybe they forgot. Maybe they thought I was busy. Maybe it was just an oversight, you know. You know when someone chooses not to make room for you. You know when it wasn't an accident. And that's the part that's so hard to talk about. 'Cause it makes you feel ashamed. You start running the mental tapes. Did I say something? Was I too much? Did I not do enough? You start shrinking in your own head, twisting yourself into all kinds of shapes to make sense of something that should never make sense, being excluded by people who are supposed to love you. That Thanksgiving I tried to brush it off. I really did. I told myself I was fine. I made food, lit a candle, put on a movie. I told myself I didn't need anyone. But I kept checking my phone. And every time another photo went up, it felt like another reminder that I wasn't there. Not just physically but emotionally. I wasn't on their minds. I wasn't in their hearts. And it hurt. What people don't understand is that exclusion sends a message. Loud and clear. It says, you don't belong. It says, you're not worth the effort. And you can only hear that message so many times before you start to believe it. Before you start internalizing it. Before you stop showing up, even when you're invited, because a part of you believes you never really belonged in the first place. Now here's the thing. I know my family's not evil. I know they didn't wake up that morning and say, let's hurt her. That's not how it works. Sometimes it's just old dynamics, old grudges, people stuck in their comfort zones, unwilling to reach out because it feels awkward or messy. But intention doesn't cancel out impact. And the impact of being left out by your own people cuts deep. The truth is, a lot of us carry this kind of pain in silence. We downplay it. We make excuses for the people who hurt us. We try to be the bigger person, the understanding one, the peacekeeper. But where's the peace in constantly pretending it doesn't hurt? Where's the peace in swallowing your feelings so other people don't have to face theirs? Let me tell you something. You can love your family and still be hurt by them. You can love them and still say, that wasn't okay. And you can be grateful for what you have, while also grieving what you needed and didn't get. That Thanksgiving was the first time I allowed myself to say, this hurt me. I didn't try to sugarcoat it. I didn't try to rationalize it. I just sat in the truth of it. And honestly, it broke my heart a little. Because when you stop making excuses, you have to face what's really going on. You have to admit that maybe the closeness you crave isn't coming. That maybe, for now, the seat at the table isn't yours. That maybe, for your own peace, you need to stop waiting to be included and start building something that includes you. So yes, I ate alone. Yes, it hurt. And yes, it opened my eyes. Because that pain had something to teach me. It taught me that pretending I wasn't hurt only made the ache louder. It taught me that waiting for others to choose me was keeping me stuck. And it taught me that sometimes the most honest, powerful thing you can do is say out loud, this mattered to me. And it broke me a little. And there's nothing weak about that. There's strength in admitting when something has touched your heart in a painful way. Because when you face it, you can heal it. When you name it, you can stop carrying it around like a secret shame. So if you've ever been left out, really left out, you know the ache I'm talking about. And if you're sitting with that ache right now, wondering what's wrong with you, let me just say this. Nothing. Nothing is wrong with you. You were just left out by people who couldn't see the value in keeping you close. I want to talk about the moment I decided to stop pretending. The moment I stopped scrolling, stopped swallowing my feelings, stopped playing it cool, and finally told the truth. You know that feeling when something inside you just snaps? Not in a rage kind of way. Not in a dramatic, throw everything in there kind of way. It's quieter than that. It's like something inside you stands up and says, no more. That's what it felt like for me. I had spent so much time pushing things down, trying to be understanding, trying to not make waves. I told myself I was above it, that I didn't need to say anything, that silence was strength. But silence can also be a prison. That Thanksgiving, after seeing picture after picture of my family celebrating without me, smiling, passing plates, raising glasses, I reached a point where I couldn't take it anymore. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I wanted to shame them, but because I was exhausted from pretending it didn't hurt. Exhausted from pretending like I didn't notice. And more than that, I was tired of erasing myself to make other people comfortable. So I did something I'd never done before. I posted the truth. It wasn't a long rant. It wasn't a passive-aggressive jab. It wasn't emotional manipulation. It was just honest. I wrote, I spent Thanksgiving alone this year. No invite, no call. Just me, my thoughts, and a lot of clarity. That's it. That's all I said. And let me tell you, my hands were shaking when I hit post. 'Cause I knew the moment I put that out there, things were going to shift. That's what truth does. It doesn't just sit quietly in a corner. It moves things, stirs the air, and sometimes it burns a little. I didn't know how people would respond. I didn't know if my family would get mad or ignore it or reach out. I didn't even care, because that post wasn't about them. It was about me. It was about reclaiming my voice after years of biting my tongue. It was about choosing myself in a space where I'd been invisible. And it was about breaking the silence that had kept me small for far too long. Here's what most people don't realize about telling the truth. It's not about drama. It's about freedom. It's about setting yourself free from the stories you've been forced to carry, the stories that say, don't speak up, don't make them uncomfortable, don't rock the boat. You know what I say? Rock the damn boat. If the boat only stays afloat by you staying silent, maybe it's time to build a new one. And the truth is, sometimes we don't speak up because we don't want to seem petty. We don't want people to think we're playing the victim. We tell ourselves, it's just one holiday. It's not a big deal. But it is a big deal when the people who are supposed to love you don't show up. It's a big deal when the pain gets so normalized you stop questioning it. And it's a big deal when you realize the silence is costing you more than the truth ever would. What surprised me most after I posted that message wasn't the backlash. It was the relief. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing in alignment with myself. No performance. No filters. Just truth. And I felt lighter. Because when you finally stop carrying the weight of pretending everything's okay, you can finally breathe. But don't get it twisted. Telling the truth isn't easy. There's no applause for it. No standing ovation. Sometimes the people who hurt you will double down. Sometimes they'll stay silent. And that's painful. But the point isn't to control their reaction. The point is to reclaim your power. And something else happened too. After I posted, messages started coming in. Quiet DMs. Texts from people I hadn't heard from in months. People saying, I know that feeling. I've been there. Thank you for saying what I've been too scared to admit. That's when it really hit me. How many of us are walking around with these quiet heartbreaks, thinking we're the only ones? Thinking we're the only ones who got left out. Who weren't chosen. Who had to pretend they didn't notice. When we tell the truth, not to destroy but to heal, we give other people permission to do the same. We crack open space for real conversations. And even if no one claps, even if no one fixes it, at least we're no longer alone in our silence. So I didn't post to start a war. I posted because I was done lying to myself. I was done minimizing my pain. I was done waiting for someone else to acknowledge what I already knew was real. And in the end, that small act of honesty, that one sentence, it didn't fix everything. But it was the first time I felt like I had my own back. Thought for a couple of seconds. You know, there's this idea out there that family is supposed to be the one place we feel safest. The one place where even if we mess up, we'll still be loved. And sometimes that's absolutely true. But other times, family can hurt us more than anyone else. And it's painful because part of us doesn't want to believe it. We grew up believing that the people who brought us into this world are automatically on our side. But families are made up of individuals, each with their own fears, insecurities, and wounds. When you mix that stuff together, you get relationships that are messy, complicated, and full of contradictions. Think about it. When you're a kid, you look up to your mom and dad or grandparents or guardians, like they have it all figured out. You believe they have your best interests at heart. Then one day, you realize they're just people trying to navigate their own history. And sometimes that means they make decisions that hurt you, intentionally or not. They might feel entitled to judge your choices because they think they know what's best. Or they might avoid difficult conversations because they don't want to face their own guilt or regret. When that happens, the same people who promised to protect you become the ones inflicting wounds you didn't even know you had. That's what happened with me. I'd built up this narrative in my head. We're a family, we stick together, we don't leave each other behind. But over time, it became clear that not everyone in my family was willing to stick their neck out when it mattered. Sometimes it was silent judgment, never saying a word but always making me feel like I'd disappointed them. Other times it was outright avoidance, as if my problems were too messy to deal with. I remember growing up, thinking I'd be safe because blood meant loyalty. But blood can also mean obligation, and obligation can turn into resentment. They resented needing to explain, needing to apologize, needing to acknowledge that boundaries had been crossed. And so they chose the easier path, pretending nothing was wrong. This happens in families all the time. There are unspoken rules. We don't talk about that. Just let it go. Stop making a big deal out of nothing. When you speak up, you're the one disrupting the peace, even though you're the one who feels the pain. It's a strange kind of power dynamic. The person who is hurt is often forced to bear the burden of keeping everyone comfortable. If you rock the boat, you become the villain. You weren't invited because you might ask uncomfortable questions. You weren't included because you might expose old grievances. And so the system perpetuates itself. Pain stays hidden, resentment grows, and people pretend that everything is fine. But here's the kicker. When we stay silent, we become complicit in our own erasure. We start to believe that our feelings don't matter. We start to think that maybe the problem is us. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I should be grateful for what I do have. Maybe I should keep the peace. And so we swallow our words, we minimize our feelings, we play along because playing along is easier than risking the fallout. Yet each time we play along, we shrink a little more. We lose a piece of ourselves to keep the illusion intact that family equals sanctuary. So what does it look like to be honest with family when honesty itself feels like a betrayal? It looks like standing in your truth, even when everyone else is uncomfortable. It looks like saying, "This thing you did, it hurt me," knowing full well you might be met with defensiveness or silence. It looks like risking the relationship because living a lie is no longer an option. And yes, sometimes that honesty leads to more conflict. Sometimes it means being written off as dramatic or ungrateful. But often it's also the first step towards something better, either real healing or the clarity that maybe, for now, you need distance to protect your own heart. And here's something we don't talk about enough. When you decide to be honest with your family, you're not just challenging them. You're challenging this idea that families are supposed to be unbreakable, perfect units. You're saying that loyalty doesn't mean never calling someone out. You're saying that love doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. You're saying that boundaries are acts of self-respect, not rebellion. And that can feel like betrayal to the people who have always seen you in a certain way. The kid who never complained, the sibling who put up with everything, the cousin who didn't make waves. But what they forget is that people grow. We evolve. And sometimes we outgrow the roles that were assigned to us. Maybe you've experienced this too. Maybe you've had a parent or sibling say, "But we've always done it this way." Or, "Why can't you just let it go?" Maybe you've tried explaining your side and ended up feeling gaslit, like your memories and your feelings don't count. That's because in many families, silence is the glue that holds them together. If someone dares to speak the truth, the glue starts to crack. And a lot of people would rather keep holding things together with cracks than face the reality that they've been contributing to someone's pain. But you know what? Those cracks can be beautiful. They let light in. They give you a chance to see each other, really see each other, for the first time in years. They give you a chance to break patterns that have been passed down for generations. Patterns of dismissiveness, favoritism, or avoidance. Some of those cracks will heal, and the family can become stronger for it. Some won't. And that's okay too. Healing doesn't always look like reconciliation. Sometimes healing looks like acceptance. Acceptance that people aren't who you want them to be. Acceptance that saying, "I tried," is enough. Acceptance that you can love someone and still need space from them. So yes, families can hurt us more than anyone else. And it often happens because the expectations are so high. We expect unconditional support, unconditional understanding, unconditional love. And when the people closest to us don't deliver, it cuts deeper than any stranger ever could. That's why telling the truth to family feels revolutionary. It's not just one conversation. It's a declaration that your experience matters, that your boundaries matter, that your heart matters. And even if you end up standing alone in that truth, you're at least standing instead of hiding in the tiny. That is worth everything. That is how you find your power. It took me a long time to understand that healing isn't always this big, sweeping moment. Sometimes it starts with something really small, like waking up the next day and deciding not to chase the people who hurt you. That's how it started for me. After that Thanksgiving, after I posted the truth, after the silence that followed, it would have been so easy to spiral. To go back into that loop of overthinking, replaying every conversation, trying to decode what I did wrong, what I should have said differently. But something in me shifted. I didn't want to live like that anymore. I didn't want my sense of worth to be determined by whether or not someone else showed up, whether or not they texted back, whether or not they finally gave me the apology I'd been waiting for. And I realized that waiting, that's its own kind of prison. Because when you wait for someone else to validate your pain, you're giving them control over your healing. And I had done that for years, quietly waiting for someone to say, "You were right," or "I'm sorry," or even just, "I see you." But the longer I waited, the more stuck I became. So that day I made a quiet decision. I decided to move forward without them. And let me be honest with you, that wasn't easy. There's nothing glamorous about it. It didn't come with a parade. Felt lonely, honestly. But it also felt powerful. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. I wasn't trying to earn a seat at a table that had made it clear I was never really welcome there in the first place. I was creating a new table. And it was just me at first, which can feel scary. But it was mine. And I could finally breathe. Sometimes we think healing means getting closure. That if we just get that one conversation, we'll finally feel peace. But closure doesn't always come from them. Comes from us. Comes from deciding that their inability to love you the way you need it has nothing to do with your worthiness. It comes from rewriting the narrative you've been carrying, that you're hard to love, that you're too much, that you're always the problem. Healing is when you stop internalizing other people's limitations as your flaws. And here's the beautiful, brutal truth. Some people will never understand the ways they hurt you. Some will never apologize. Some won't even acknowledge that anything happened. And if you keep tying your healing to their awareness, you'll stay stuck in a cycle of disappointment. But the moment you stop needing their permission to move on, everything changes. You reclaim your energy. You stop pouring into people who never pour back. You start building something new. From a place of truth instead of pain. I started doing little things that felt like reclamation. Going for walks without checking my phone. Saying no without justifying it. Spending time with people who made me feel seen and safe, even if we didn't share a last name. I started redefining what family meant to me, not just as something you're born into, but something you create. People who celebrate you, who listen without judgment, who don't weaponize your vulnerability. That became my new circle. Smaller, yes, but real. And I stopped pretending. That was huge. I stopped saying I was fine when I wasn't. I stopped laughing at jokes that hurt. I stopped engaging in conversations that drained me just to keep the peace. Because peace that costs your authenticity isn't peace. It's performance. And I was done performing. Little by little, things started to shift. Not magically, not overnight. But steadily. My boundaries got clearer. My voice got stronger. I stopped reacting to everything and started responding with intention. I started choosing myself, not in a selfish way, but in a grounded, self-respecting way. And every time I did, I healed a little more. See, healing isn't about fixing everything. It's about reclaiming the parts of you that were lost in the process of trying to be accepted. It's about saying, I matter, even if you don't see it. It's about no longer begging to be chosen and choosing yourself instead. And yeah, it might mean walking away. It might mean disappointing people who are used to the version of you that kept quiet. But your healing is worth that. Your peace is worth that. So if you're sitting in the aftermath of being left out, of being hurt, of being unseen, and you're wondering how to move forward, start small. Start with one decision that says, I'm not going to let this define me. Then take another. And another. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to stop living in the waiting room of someone else's awareness. That's how you begin to come home to yourself. Here's the truth that most people don't talk about. Choosing yourself will cost you something. And most of the time it costs you comfort. It costs you belonging to places that never truly saw you in the first place. It costs you relationships that were built on your silence. But what you gain in return, peace, clarity, self-respect, is worth every single thing you lose. After that Thanksgiving, after sitting alone and then daring to speak the truth out loud, something shifted in me. It was like this quiet click. Not a dramatic moment, not fireworks, just a deep, grounded knowing. I don't need to chase love anymore. I don't need to shrink to fit someone else's idea of acceptable. I don't need to beg for a seat at any table where I've already been made to feel like a burden. And that doesn't mean I don't feel grief. It doesn't mean I didn't cry or question myself or replay every memory trying to find where it all went wrong. That still happens. But I've learned to let those thoughts come and go without letting them rule me. Because I finally realized, I don't want to be invited out of guilt. I don't want to be included because someone remembered at the last minute or because they were afraid of looking bad. I want to be where I'm chosen, freely, fully, and without conditions. I want to be in rooms where my name is spoken with warmth. Where my absence is noticed, not because it's inconvenient but because I'm genuinely missed. I want connection, not performance. Love, not obligation. Truth, not just tradition. And if that means I celebrate some holidays alone, that's okay. If it means I spend less time with people who used to be everything to me, that's okay too. Because here's what I know now. You don't heal by pretending things are fine. You don't grow by staying where your soul is shrinking. You grow when you stop clinging to what's familiar and start honoring what's real. You know, for so long I thought loyalty meant staying. Staying silent. Staying available. Staying soft even when it hurt. But loyalty without reciprocity is self-betrayal. And I decided I'd rather disappoint someone else than keep disappointing myself. I'd rather be misunderstood for standing in my truth than be praised for keeping the peace that's been quietly killing me. There's a freedom that comes with that kind of decision. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's steady. It's quiet strength. It's walking into a room and knowing you don't have to perform to be worthy of love. It's leaving a conversation that starts to twist your gut and not looking back. It's sitting at your own table. Yes, even on a holiday. And feeling at peace because you know you didn't abandon yourself to earn someone else's approval. And once you taste that freedom, even just a little, it becomes the new standard. You stop trying to fix what doesn't want to be fixed. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. You stop apologizing for growing out of roles that kept you small. And maybe the people around you don't understand it right away. Maybe they call you distant. Maybe they think you've changed. And they're right. You have changed. Because you're finally showing up for yourself the way you've always shown up for everyone else. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them miss the version of you that made their lives easier at your expense. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing your own well-being. You don't owe anyone access to you just because you share a last name or a history. Love doesn't mean letting people repeatedly cross your boundaries and then thanking them for coming back around. Love means honesty. Love means accountability. Love means safety. And if that's not present in a relationship, family or not, it's okay to step back. It's okay to grieve what you hoped it would be and still let it go. I don't regret posting the truth. I don't regret sitting alone. Because both were invitations to something deeper. They forced me to reckon with the difference between being included and being respected. Between being remembered and being valued. Between showing up out of habit and showing up with heart. And yes, the road forward has been different than I imagined. Some doors stayed shut. Some relationships stayed silent. But I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm just clear. And that clarity is everything. Because now I know, I'm not hard to love. I'm just done begging for it. That's how you rise.